Hey guys, welcome back. What an amazing week we had this week. We have to go into the weekend with a massive amount of confidence and enthusiasm for this memory sector, for these memory titans on what they showed us this week. In fact, Micron put up 21% growth on the week. Western Digital grew by 20%. Seagate, 131% on the week. And SanDisk went absolutely parabolic, 156% growth on the week. We spent this week talking about the hyperscaler green light, the signals within those prints, and what would be bullish for the memory sector. And then we saw three of the Fab Four just drop absolutely massive prints onto Wall Street. Seagate, SanDisk, and Western Digital, they dropped absolutely massive prints that just validated the structural shift that we see in the memory sector overall. They validated the demand and the super cycle that we see in the market right now. And after Western Digital and SanDisk dropped their prints yesterday, we saw what we expected. There was an immediate or an initial reaction. The initial reaction was a mechanical flush. We saw a bit of pullback in the after hours, and we thought we would see that pullback today at the opening bell as well. But when we look at the 5-minute candle charts, which we'll jump into a minute, and look at the closing tape for all four of these stocks today, today's story wasn't about a dip at all. It was about a massive recovery, a quick recovery, after a bit of a gap down in the morning, and a new valuation floor that has been established for the sector. Tonight, we're going to look past the sell the news headlines, and we're going to break down what the actual performance was today. I'm going to show you the signals hidden in the hyperscaler earnings that are bullish for the sector. And we're also going to take a look at why the whales are aggressively defending these levels by showing you some of the closing crosses today at the end of the day. This wasn't just a normal earnings cycle week. This was the physical reality of the AI build-out finally hitting the balance sheets and showing both the demand and the pricing power that these Fab Four, these memory titans have in the market right now. Guys, let's jump in and take a look at the performance. But before we do that, why don't you do me a favor and hit like, hit subscribe to the channel. We're trying to get over to over the 8,000 subscribers. We're getting really close, but I'd love to pass it tonight. So if you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. Hit subscribe. Join this channel. Get this content each and every day. Love to have you as part of the community. Let's dive in and take a look at our first stock, which is SanDisk. SanDisk has an absolutely parabolic day today. Let me just show you. Let's start off by just kind of taking a look at SanDisk across the board. $90 gain, as you can see. 8.25%, huge day. Look in the after hours, continuing to gain more. Another $2.18, another 0.2% growth overall, pushing up past their 52-week high right now. They're pushing close to 1,190, almost 1,200 a share. But the biggest piece here that I want to show is all the new price targets that came out for SanDisk. All of these stocks have had massive new price targets this week. Just again, being re-rated in real time, validating the super cycle that we see in the market and the demand that these companies have. But look, if you can look at SanDisk, we have everything from Wells Fargo, which came out yesterday at $12.50, so just about a 5% upside for where the stock trades today. And then we have Susquehanna that came out yesterday as well as at a $2,000 price target, a 68% upside from where the stock trades today. But you can see we have everything between as well. 1,300 from Citi, 1,700 from Bernstein, and 1,800 from Cantor Fitzgerald. Massive new targets for this stock overall for SanDisk of what we're seeing in the market. But let's look at just kind of the tail of the tape, the 5-minute chart, the 5-minute candle chart. And you can see we did have a gap down with SanDisk right there. You can see from where it opened, where it closed on Thursday to where it opened on Friday is what we were expecting. We saw that in the after hours, but look at the level of support immediately. I mean, we got down to a low of about 1,048 right here within the first 10 minutes or so of the open, but then we drove right back up immediately. Got back up to a high of 1153. And then we saw a little bit of pullback. We see a little bit of selling volume underneath here, but look at the accumulation coming in. This is a massive support. Look at the end of the day there. This is the ascending channel. It's kind of a V-shaped recovery that you see there right in the morning, and then this huge ascending channel to end the day overall. The stock did face that sharp high volume shakeout in the first 30 minutes. It shook out the weak hands that were holding and having fear and anxiety about this stock. It's what I warned about yesterday. Don't, hold firm, because you're going to be encouraged to shake out. These institutional investors want to get this stock at a lower price. We saw that a bit this morning as it dipped down to the 1,048 level. but the buyers stepped in aggressively after that. The remainder of the session was characterized, you can see on the screen, by this consistent climb with very narrow candle bodies, signaling low volatility and a high conviction institutional accumulation that drove the stock up to the end at its closing price of $11.87. And look at that finish. I mean, that is just a strong, massive accumulation. The RSI is a little high, so we have to keep our eye on that as we head in over the weekend and into the morning bell on Monday. But this stock is in a parabolic move right now, so we very well could see the RSI be high like that. That doesn't concern me as much. It was an 8.25 growth on the day, massive accumulation. We're seeing the stock, as I mentioned, in the after hours push towards 1,200. This isn't retail momentum that we're seeing. This is institutional accumulation and support for SanDisk right now. Awesome day, awesome week for the company overall. Let's jump in and take a look at Micron next. We'll start off here with Micron. Let's go back up to the top. Sorry, guys. Micron ended at 542.36. Strong day, $25 gain, almost a 5% growth on the day. You can see over to the right, its daily range was a new 52-week high of 545.91. Stock's getting really close to that 550 level to me. You know, I set that as my year-end price target. I'm going to have to readjust because we're going to get through 550, I think, next week. We're going to see this continued performance for this stock. There's a lot of massive demand. In the after hours, pulling back a little bit, about a 0.3%, just under a $2 pullback right now. Still sitting at about 540 overall. Really strong position. And if we get down and look at the new price targets for Micron, we had 3 come in this week. You can see we talked about Miletus over here. It's $700 price target. New coverage for the stock, 29% upside from where it trades today. But look at D.A. Davidson. Massive bullish price target here. New coverage for this firm, $1,000 price target for Micron. It's the first time I've seen one get hit this high. Is this going to be a new trend for Micron? Are we going to see the analysts come in and re-rate this stock? We know it's so undervalued. It's about time it gets re-rated and really validated in the market for the amount of contribution and demand that this company has. 1,000 is awesome to see. You also see TD Cowen come in at 660, 22% upside, from where the stock trades today. They moved from 550 to 660. So great validation for Micron as well. Let's take a look at the tail of their tape on what we saw. Not as much of a gap down with Micron. Look at the volume that we see in the beginning of the day. But we did see a little bit of a gap down here. You see just a tiny bit. Where we closed here, we closed roughly about 517 on Thursday, and we got down to a low of about 510, $7 change in the first 5 minutes. But look at this kind of mountain staircase here. This accumulation or just vertical climb for the stock to get all the way up to 545. Saw a little bit of I would say this is probably indicative of profit taking for sure. We probably had some algorithmic selling in here when it hit that level of 540, got over there to 545. We definitely saw probably a bit of a pullback from some profit taking and selling. We got into this area of sideways consolidation right here, but it did validate the 518 support level. I think we got down here to about a low of 524 overall, but we saw this validation and this move from, we were facing this 518 resistance level before. I think that is gone now. That is, I would say we're even past that as the floor at this point, because look at the way we closed into the day. We spent the afternoon, hitting these higher lows leading into the final hour of trading where we saw a strong vertical push that closed the stock at 542.36, right at the top of its daily range overall. RSI looks good to me. It got a little overextended here in the earlier part of the day, as you can see, but it looks good to me sitting about the mid-60s, not giving us any huge flags or concern that the stock is overextended at all. This was a strong day we're seeing from Micron today. Like I said, they're pushing at a 52-week high. Strong support in the market. I think we have more room to grow with the stock, and it's nice to see it get re-rated by some firms in real time. That $1,000 level from D.A. Davidson was awesome. I hope we can see more of those, and I hope the stock continues to drive towards that range. Now let's jump over and take a look at Seagate. Seagate was a massive performer this week. Sorry, guys. Massive performer this week. And look where we are. Closed at almost 727, $53 gain, 8% gain on the board, picking up some more in the after hours. You can see the high of the day was 728. That is the 52-week high for the stock. Just look at the right below, 52-week range from 91 to 728. This stock is been all neck and neck with SanDisk recently over the last few weeks about how massive it's been growing. 727, awesome performance. Let's take a look to see what new price targets have come in this week. All this new this week, from Tuesday and Wednesday, these 5, we see a range of 750 is the low with about a 3% upside from where the stock trades today to 800, 840, and to 1,000. Bernstein came in and went from 620 to 1,000. We see that Barclays went from 625 to 750, and we have new coverage from Fox Advisors. And Cantor went from 700 to 1,000, and Bank of America 700 to 840. So again, another example of these stocks being kind of re-rated in real time based on the demand that we're seeing in the market, based on the earnings print that they all dropped this week. And let's look at this support. You don't see any gap down at all from where we closed on Thursday, and it's just continued support. And look how it ended on Thursday here. Look at that performance coming into Friday's market. We knew this was the one that just was not having any signs of pullback in the after hours coming into Friday's opening bell, and you could see it. It just gapped up. It kind of gapped up and went right from the get-go. Hit a high here of 727 before we saw a little bit of pullback, kind of similar to what we saw with Micron. A little bit of algorithmic selling at the same time period, but look at the massive support that followed with Seagate. It had a huge performance across the board. This was an accelerated trend line pattern. If you look at the way it finished, it outperformed the broader sector earlier in the day and had especially after a massive explosive morning breakout that we showed there right out of the get-go. And it broke out on heavy volume. Look at the volume down below. RSI got a little high, and maybe that's part of the selling part there. You can see that part of RSI floating here up above 70, hitting a really high level of 80s. That probably drove some of the algorithmic selling also for the stock. But this is a massive support overall and just a continued kind of support throughout the day. That's a huge sign of institutional support. And look at that volume to finish the day right here. Just a massive volume bar kind of on a buy, market on a closed buy overall. Strong support heading into the weekend for this stock. It doesn't look like this stock has any sign of pulling back or giving back. It just wants to keep running overall. The session concluded with that massive volume spike that you see in that final candle. It pushed the price to its close of 726. I think it closed at 720. We'll call it 727. And it confirmed the demand that the storage leaders, that their price remains elastic. The market is no longer viewing these companies as cyclical hardware stocks. They're viewing them as high margin utilities of the AI era. And then we've got to jump over to our last one, which is Western Digital. Western Digital was the different one today. It was the only one that was down of the 4. You can see it was down by about $3, just 0.69%. After hours, it's still pulling back about another $1.28, another 0.3%. This was the one differing factor for the memory sector. It did get up to a high of 446 today, which actually is the 52-week high. So it did spike up at one point today. Let's take a look at the price targets that came in for this stock because they're all brand new based on Thursday after their earnings print. And you can see we all have upside. We see everything from Morgan Stanley moving from 380 to 488. Wells Fargo is from 335 to 500. Cantor Fitzgerald from 5 to 6, and Bernstein from 340 to 590. So significant upside still left in this stock based on these price targets that are out there for Western Digital. Let's look at their candle chart, and you could see they had a massive kind of gap down. It's what we were seeing in the after hours, probably the one we expected as well. And you could see right from where we closed yesterday at 434, and we gapped down to about 410 when we closed this 5-minute candle here. But look at the support afterwards. Look at the volume that stepped in. So this is, weak hands, let's call it, being afraid, looking in the after hours, trying to move from the stock, take profits after a 60% gain leading up to its earnings. But then look at the support that immediately came in, shot this stock all the way back up here to about a high of 446. We got 446 overall. And then we did see a little bit of drop again, upward sideways consolidation. I wouldn't even say this was sideways consolidation because it's moving in the upward pattern and a little bit of pullback towards the finish for Western overall. So I would say, when you look at the pattern of this chart, it's a volatility squeeze and trend reversal pattern. We saw the morning sell-off, as we mentioned, where the stock actually tested the support of 427 overall. It entered into a period after that, a period of tightening price action with declining sell side volume. The squeeze broke to the upside in the late afternoon, as you can see right here. The squeeze over here, it kind of broke. We moved to the upside pattern in the late afternoon, and it eventually rallied back towards the 431.79 close to finish off the day. But I do like seeing that little bit of a bullish rounding bottom structure here at the end. This is a nice piece to finish off the day overall. So that's kind of the takeaway from all of these memory stocks today. They had strong performance. We didn't see that massive sell-off we saw, but get support right away, and new valuation, new price targets coming in, validating these stocks and these prices, and for what we saw in the market, excuse me. But then there's some closing crosses that I just want to touch on real quickly, because I've mentioned them a few times. And one of them was with what we saw with Micron. And you could see the closing cross with Micron right here. I'll just pull it up. Right at the closing bell, $600 million print, over $1 million shares at the price of 542.21. SanDisk had a very similar one. Let me see if I can pull that up for you guys in real time here. Let's see if it cooperates. Yes, SanDisk, you can see about 568.2 million trade right at the closing cross, called 500,000 shares overall at the 1187 overall. These are two massive prints for these companies. Two closing cross, two huge signs of institutional support. When you're looking at Micron, where you see almost over $600 million crossing the wire in the final seconds, this trade represented over 1 million shares at that price of 542. And same thing with SanDisk. It was a massive whale hit at closing cross for them. It was about 500,000 shares right at the 1187 print. These are non-discretionary institutional buy orders. Large funds benchmark their performance to the closing price like this, and seeing nearly 1.2 billion billion dollars for these two moves overall at the final tickers. This signifies high-level institutional support that is aggressively positioning themselves for next week with both Micron and SanDisk. This closing cross were a massive vote of confidence for the sector as well as for Micron and SanDisk. These institutional whales, they didn't wait for a pullback. They bought the strength because they know we are in a structural shortage, a structural super cycle for memory. The expensive price today is going to be the cheap price next week. That's the way they're looking at it overall. The 542 level right now for Micron is the new institutional floor. It is the institutional anchor for the stock as we move into next week. And guys, the last thing I want to mention is we talked about the signals, the green lights from the hyperscaler reports. I mentioned it yesterday's video, that the Apple piece was huge bullish. The fact that their new iPhone 18 is going to have 50% more memory. But when you zoom out and you look at the aggregated signal from all of the hyperscalers, it was a unified bullish roadmap for memory. We have Microsoft and Google. They've committed to a combined 100 billion CapEx target, specifically citing the AI infrastructure as the primary bucket. That money is going to flow directly into HBM4 and SSD architectures. And we always see that in the Micron and SanDisk prints. We'll see it in their price actions moving. And then we look at Meta. They admitted they are capacity constrained through 2026. What that is code for, what the signal is there, is they want to spend more money, but they can't get enough chips. This gives the memory titans absolute pricing power. And Amazon is accelerating Project Hyper and their own custom silicon, both which require massive amounts of high-speed enterprise storage. And Apple, as I mentioned yesterday, Tim Cook's admission that memory prices are significantly increasing is the ultimate tell. Apple is moving to the 12 gigabytes, like we said, to support into Apple Intelligence. So when Apple increases the memory tax by 50%, they suck every available wafer out of the market, causing a global supply vacuum that benefits every company in this sector. So where does this all leave us as we head into next week? We've seen the earnings. We've seen the margin expansions. We've seen the whales defend the floors. The overextended argument is failing because the earnings are growing faster than the price. If a stock goes up 20%, but its earning goes up by 50 because of a structural supply deficit, then the stock is technically just got cheaper. Monday's opening is all about whether we can hold these new highs. I'm watching the 1180 level on SanDisk and the 540 on Micron. If we can stay above those levels, the flush is officially over. We are moving into a new phase of this rally. Don't get distracted by all the noise in the market. Stay anchored in the fundamentals and the signals that we saw this week in the hyperscaler prints. These companies are the gatekeepers of the $600 billion AI build-out, and the buyers have already committed, and they've admitted that they'll pay whatever it takes to get the products from these memory players. I'll be watching the tape closely over this weekend, be watching as we head into Monday's opening bell. Guys, stay disciplined. Enjoy this week. Enjoy the success we had with this sector this week. I hope you have a great weekend. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.